The massive conference room aboard the Galactic Confederation flagship was filled with beings from across the known galaxy. 6 different species sat around the curved table, their alien forms creating strange shadows under the bright lights. At the head of the table, Commander Vex of the Krellian Empire studied the holographic display with his 4 yellow eyes. "So these are the humans," Vex said, his voice making a low rumbling sound. He pointed one of his thick, armored fingers at the floating image of a human male. "They look even weaker than I expected." The hologram showed detailed scans of human anatomy. Thin skin that could be cut easily. Bones that seemed fragile compared to other species. No natural armor, no claws, no poison glands. The humans appeared to be one of the most defenseless creatures the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Kellner, a tall blue-skinned scientist from the Altrian species, nodded in agreement. "Our medical scans confirm it. Human skin is only 2 millimeters. Thick in most places. Their bones break under pressure that would barely scratch a Krellian child. They have no natural weapons at all. What about their technology?" asked General Thorne, whose rock-like skin made him look like a living mountain. "Surely they have advanced weapons to make up for their physical weakness." Dr. Kellner touched the control panel and new images appeared. Human weapons floated in. The air spinning slowly, guns that shot metal bullets. Knives made of simple steel. Vehicles that moved on wheels instead of hover technology. "Primitive," Vex said with a laugh that sounded like grinding stones. "They still use chemical explosives. And metal projectiles. Their most advanced ship barely reaches half the speed of our oldest cargo vessels." The other aliens in the room made sounds of amusement. Some clicked their tongues, others made chirping noises. All of them seemed to find the humans very funny. "I have seen children's toys that are more dangerous than human weapons," said Ambassador Zilla, whose snake-like body coiled around her chair. "How did these creatures even survive long enough to develop space travel?" Dr. Kellner brought up more data. "According to our research, humans come from a planet with very mild conditions. Low radiation, stable temperature, abundant food sources. They never had to develop real survival skills. They are what we call a garden world species, soft creatures, who grew up in paradise." General Thorne leaned forward, his massive frame creaking the chair beneath him. "What about their military? Surely they have some kind of fighting force." "They do," Dr. Kellner replied, bringing up images of human soldiers. "But look at them. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no combat modifications. They wear cloth uniforms and carry equipment that weighs them down. A single Krellian warrior could probably defeat a dozen of these humans without breaking a sweat." Commander Vex stood up, his full height reaching nearly 3 meters. His armored skin gleamed under the lights as he paced around the room. "The timing of first contact is interesting. We are about to face the Void Reapers, and suddenly these fragile creatures appear, asking to join our confederation." The Void Reapers were the galaxy's greatest threat. Mechanical beings with no mercy, no fear, and no weakness. They had destroyed entire star systems, turning thriving worlds into empty space. Every species in the galaxy lived in terror of their return. "Perhaps the humans could serve some purpose," suggested Ambassador Zilla. "Even weak creatures can carry supplies or tend to the wounded." "That might be their only use," agreed General Thorne. "They are certainly too fragile for real combat. One hit from a Void Reaper weapon would turn them into dust." Dr. Kellner nodded. "Our simulations show that humans would last an average of 12 seconds in direct combat with Void Reaper forces. Their reaction time is too slow, their bodies too weak, their weapons too primitive." Commander Vex stopped pacing and looked at the human images again. "Very well. We will accept them into the Confederation, but only in support roles. Medical assistance, supply transport, communications, things that keep them far away from actual fighting." "What if they object?" asked General Thorne. "Some species have pride, even when they lack ability." "Then we will explain the facts too." "Them," Vex replied. Better to hurt their feelings than to watch them die uselessly in battle? These humans seem intelligent enough to understand their limitations. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Jihoon stood in the military briefing room, reading the message from the Galactic Confederation. His weathered face showed no emotion as he read the terms of humanity's acceptance into the galactic community. "Support roles only," he said to the other officers in the room. "They want us to stay in the back and carry their supplies." Captain Mina, the unit's chief medical officer, frowned as she read her own copy. "They think we are too weak to fight. According to this report, they classify us as a fragile species with limited combat potential." Lieutenant Tae-yun, sitting near the window, laughed quietly. "Fragile? That is funny. They should ask the instructors at survival school what they think about human fragility." "This is serious," Jihoon said, though there was a hint of amusement in his voice. "They are offering us protection and technology, but they want to treat us like children who cannot take care of themselves." Sergeant Su-yang looked up from her communication device. "Sir, I have been researching these alien species. The Krellians have thick armor plating and enhanced strength. The Altrians can survive in toxic environments that would kill most life forms. The Thracians are basically living rocks." "So they judge strength by armor and size," Mina said thoughtfully. "They look at our skin and bones and assume we are helpless." Tae-yun stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the training grounds where human soldiers were running obstacle courses. "They have never seen what humans can do when we refuse to give up. They measure strength by how hard it is to hurt us, not by how much hurt we can endure." Jihoon folded the message and put it in his pocket. "We will accept their offer for now. Let them give us their technology and their protection. But when the time comes to prove ourselves, we will show them what human determination really means." "What? If they never give us that chance?" asked Su-yang. "Then we will make our own chance," Jihoon replied. "The galaxy is about to learn that being fragile and being weak are two very different things." The other officers nodded in agreement. They had all been through enough battles to know that the toughest fights were won not by the strongest bodies, but by the strongest wills. The aliens might have better armor and bigger weapons, but they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to stop fighting. Outside the window, human soldiers continued their training, unaware that the galaxy had already written them off as too weak to matter. Soon, they would have the chance to prove just how wrong that assessment really was. The joint military base on Kepler 442 stretched across the rocky landscape like a metal city. Ships from dozens of different species landed and took off constantly, carrying supplies and soldiers to prepare for the coming war with the Void Reapers. The base was a testament to galactic cooperation, but not all cooperation was equal. Commander Yunwu of the Krellian Empire stood on the observation deck, watching the human transport ships arrive. His thick, armored skin gleamed dull gray in the planet's orange sunlight. Behind him, other Krellian officers made low, rumbling sounds of amusement. "Look at them," said Captain Vorth, pointing with one of his forearms. "They move so slowly. Even their machines seem fragile." The human soldiers were unloading their equipment from the transport ships. Compared to the massive Krellian warriors or the rock-like Thracian troops, the humans looked like children playing soldier. Their uniforms were made of simple fabric, their weapons small and lightweight. "I still cannot believe Command assigned them to this base," Yangwu said, shaking his large head. "When the Void Reapers arrive, those humans will be nothing but targets." Down in the cargo area, Jihoon supervised the unloading of human supplies. He could feel the alien eyes watching his people, could hear their whispered comments even though he did not understand their languages. The tone was clear enough. "Sir," said Lieutenant Tae-yun, approaching with a supply manifest, "the Krellians have assigned us quarters in section. See, that is the area farthest from the command center and the main weapons depot." Jihoon was not surprised. "They want to keep us out of the way." "What about our equipment assignments?" "Medical supplies, communication gear, and transport vehicles," Tae-yun replied. "No heavy weapons, no combat vehicles, no access to the forward positions." Captain Mina joined them, carrying her medical bag. I tried to set up a field hospital near the front lines, but a Thracian general told me it was too dangerous for humans. They moved our medical station to the rear support area. They are treating us like we are made of glass, said Sergeant Su Yang, who had been listening to alien communications chatter. I heard a Krellian officer tell his troops that humans would break if they were hit by a strong wind. Tae-yun clenched his fists but kept his voice calm. Maybe we should show them how wrong they are. Not yet, Ji-hoon said quietly. Let them underestimate us for now. When the real fighting starts, we will have our chance. The next morning, joint training exercises began. The vast training ground was divided into sections, with each species practicing their combat techniques. The Krellians moved like living tanks, their thick armor making them nearly unstoppable. The Thracians formed shield walls that looked like moving mountains. The snake-like Altrians slithered through obstacle courses with deadly grace. The humans were assigned to a small corner of the training ground where they practiced basic formations and supply runs. Other species would occasionally stop their own training to watch and laugh. Look at the little humans playing war, said a young Krellian soldier to his friends. They run around with their tiny weapons like they could actually hurt something. Tae-yun heard the comment and felt his anger rising. He had been a soldier for 8 years and had seen real combat on Earth. These aliens thought they knew everything about fighting, but they had never faced a truly desperate human. During the lunch break, a group of Krellian soldiers approached the human section. Their leader, a massive warrior named Grex, towered over the humans by at least 2 meters. We hear you humans think you are warriors, Grex said, his voice like grinding stone. Would you like to prove it? Ji-hoon stepped forward. What do you have in mind? A simple test, Grex replied. One of your soldiers against one of mine. Hand-to-hand combat, no weapons. When your fighter gives up or gets knocked down, we will know where humans really belong. The other aliens gathered around to watch. This was exactly the kind of entertainment they had been hoping for. A chance to see the fragile humans learn their place. Tae-yun stepped forward before Ji-hoon could stop him. I accept. Tae-yun, no, Mina whispered. He is twice your size and has natural armor. You could get seriously hurt? Maybe, Tae-yun replied with a small smile, but I will not give up. The fighting circle formed quickly. Alien soldiers from multiple species gathered around to watch the spectacle. Grex cracked his knuckles, producing sounds like breaking rocks. His confidence was obvious. Try not to break the little human too badly, called out another Krellian. We still need someone to carry our supplies. The fight began with Grex charging forward like a bull. His massive fist swung toward Tae-yun's head with enough force to crush stone, but Tae-yun was not there when the punch arrived. He had ducked low and moved to the side, his smaller size allowing him to slip away from the attack. Grex stumbled slightly, surprised by the human's speed. He turned and swung again, this time with both fists. Again, Tae-yun avoided the attack, dancing backward just out of reach. Stand still and fight. Grex roared, frustrated by his inability to land a hit. I am fighting, Tae-yun replied calmly. Are you? The watching aliens began to murmur. This was not going as they had expected. The human was supposed to be crushed. Instantly, not dancing around like a ghost, Grex charged again, this time trying to grab Tae-yun with his 4 arms. For a moment it looked like he had succeeded, but Tae-yun slipped through his grasp like water. As he moved, he struck quick, precise blows to joints in Grex's armor where the plates did not connect perfectly. The hits did not do much damage, but they were annoying. More importantly, they showed that the human could find weak spots that others missed. The fight continued for 10 minutes. Grex threw punch after punch, each one strong enough to destroy a normal human, but none of them connected. Tae-yun moved constantly, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. Finally, Grex was breathing heavily. His armor, which usually felt light, now seemed to weigh him down. Sweat dripped from his face as he realized he was getting tired. While the human seemed as fresh as when they started. How? Grex panted. How are you still moving? Because I do not know how to quit. Tae-yun replied simply, Commander Yunwu watched from the edge of the circle, his expression thoughtful. The other aliens had stopped laughing. They were beginning to realize that maybe there was more to humans than met the eye. The fight ended when Grex finally collapsed from exhaustion. He had not been defeated by superior strength or better armor. He had been defeated by simple endurance and the refusal to give up. Taeyun helped the fallen Krelian to his feet. "Good fight," he said respectfully. "You are very strong." Grex looked at the small human with new eyes. You never tried to hurt me. You could have struck vulnerable spots, but you only defended yourself. I wanted to prove a point, not 'cause injury," Taeyun replied. "We are all on the same side here." As the crowd dispersed, Hyunwoo approached Ji-hoon. "Your soldier fought well," he said grudgingly. "Perhaps humans have some uses after all." "Perhaps we do," Ji-hoon agreed quietly. That night, word of the fight spread throughout the base. The story grew with each telling, but the core message remained the same. The fragile humans might be tougher than anyone had imagined. In the human quarters, Mine attended to Taeyun's few minor bruises. "That was risky," she said. "You could have been killed." "But I was not," Taeyun replied. "And now maybe they will think twice before calling us weak." Ji-hoon nodded approvingly. "This is just the beginning. When the real test comes, we will show them what humans are really made of." Outside, the first reports of Void Reaper scouts were coming in from the outer system. The real war was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans were full of surprises. The alarm screamed through the orbital defense platform like the cry of a dying animal. Red lights flashed in every corridor as soldiers ran to their battle stations. The Void Reapers had arrived 3 days earlier than expected, and their massive fleet filled the dark space around Kepler 442b. Like a swarm of metal insects, Lieutenant Taeyun pressed himself against the corridor wall as a group of Krelian warriors thundered past, their heavy armor clanking with each step. Through the nearest viewport, he could see the enemy ships. They were black as space itself, with no lights or markings. They moved in perfect formation, like pieces of a deadly machine. "All human personnel report to evacuation stations," came the announcement over the communication system. The voice belonged to Commander Hyunwoo. "This is not a drill. All human personnel evacuate immediately." Taeyun ignored the order and continued toward his assigned position. He had been placed in charge of Platform Section 7, a supply depot that the aliens considered unimportant. But Taeyun knew that every position mattered in a real fight. The first wave of Void Reaper fighters swept toward the platform like a black tide. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy that could cut through the strongest armor. The platform's defensive guns opened fire, filling space with bright explosions. In the command center, Commander Hyunwoo watched the battle displays with growing concern. The enemy had more ships than the intelligence reports had suggested. "Much more." "Sir," reported his communications officer, "Section 7 is requesting permission to activate defensive systems." "Section 7? Hyunwoo looked at his tactical display. "That is where we put the human. Order him to evacuate immediately." "That section will be overrun in minutes." "He says he refuses to leave his post, sir." Hyunwoo growled in frustration. "Those stubborn humans will get themselves killed for no reason. Send a squad to drag him out if necessary." But there was no time to send anyone. The first Void Reaper boarding pods slammed into the platform like meteors, their drills cutting through the metal hull in seconds. Mechanical warriors poured out, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. Section 7 was one of the first areas hit. The boarding pod smashed through the outer wall, sending pieces of metal flying like deadly arrows. Taeyun was thrown across the room by the explosion, his body slamming into a support beam with a sickening crack. Pain shot through his chest as he tried to stand. Something was wrong with his breathing. He could taste blood in his mouth, but the mechanical sounds of Void Reaper warriors entering his section forced him to move. 3 enemy soldiers stepped through the hole in the wall. They were tall and thin, made of black metal with joints that moved like liquid. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy as they scanned the area for targets. Taeyun grabbed his rifle and took cover behind a supply crate. Each breath sent sharp pain through his chest, and he could feel something grinding inside when he moved. His left leg felt wrong too, possibly broken. But his weapon still worked, and that was what mattered. The first Void Reaper moved toward his position, its red eyes sweeping back and forth. Tae-yun waited until it was close, then fired 3 quick shots. The enemy warrior staggered but did not fall. Its armor was too strong for normal weapons. Tae-yun had not expected to destroy it with small arms fire. He had been aiming for the joints, the weak points where the armor plates connected. His second burst of fire hit the enemy's knee joint, and the mechanical warrior collapsed with a crash of metal. The other 2 Void Reapers turned toward his position and opened fire. Energy beams scorched the air above his head as Tae-yun rolled to new cover. The movement sent waves of agony through his broken ribs, but he forced himself to keep moving. In the command center, sensor readings showed that Section 7 was under heavy attack. Commander Hyun-woo expected the area to fall within minutes. No single soldier could hold against multiple Void Reapers, especially not a fragile human. "Sir," called his sensor operator, "I am reading weapons fire from Section 7. The human is still fighting." "Impossible," Hyun-woo replied. "He should be dead by now." But the sensors did not lie. Section 7 was not only still active, it was holding its ground. Tae-hyun fired at the second Void Reaper from his new position. His breathing was getting worse, and he could feel wetness spreading across his chest inside his uniform. Something was definitely broken inside, probably bleeding. But he could still shoot, and that meant he could still fight. The enemy warrior advanced on his position, its weapon charging for another shot. Tae-yun waited until the last second, then threw himself sideways. The energy beam missed him by centimeters, leaving a molten scar on the wall behind him. As he rolled, Tae-yun grabbed a plasma grenade from his belt. His movements were clumsy now, slowed by pain and injury, but his mind was still clear. He pulled the pin and tossed the grenade with perfect timing. The explosion knocked the second Void Reaper backward, its armor cracked and sparking. Tae-yun finished it with careful shots to the damaged areas. The third enemy warrior had moved to flank him during the fight. It appeared suddenly from behind a pile of supply boxes, its weapon already aimed at Tae-yun's head. For a moment, everything seemed frozen in time. Then Captain Mina appeared behind the Void Reaper like a ghost. She had disobeyed evacuation orders, just like Tae-yun, and her medical training had taught her exactly where to strike. Her combat knife found the gap between the enemy's neck and shoulder armor, and the mechanical warrior collapsed in a shower of sparks. "Tae-yun!" she cried, rushing to his side. "What are you doing here? You were supposed to evacuate?" "So were you," he replied with a painful smile. Blood ran from the corner of his mouth. "I think something is broken inside." Mina quickly examined him, her medical training taking over. "Broken ribs, at least 3 of them. One has punctured your lung. Your left leg is fractured, you have internal bleeding and probably a concussion." "Can you fix it?" Tae-yun asked. "Not here, not like this. You need a real medical facility and surgery. You should not even be conscious with these injuries." More explosions shook the platform as the battle continued in other sections. Through the hole in the wall, they could see more Void Reaper pods approaching. "We have to go," Mina said. "I can give you emergency treatment, but you need to get to safety." Tae-yun looked at his rifle, then at the approaching enemy pods. How many more Void Reapers in those pods? "At least a dozen, but you cannot fight anymore. Your lung is collapsing." "Then you will have to help me breathe," Tae-yun said, checking his ammunition, "because I am not leaving my post." Mina stared at him in disbelief. "You could die." "You probably will die if you keep fighting." "Maybe," Tae-yun agreed. "But if we run, everyone on this platform could die? I would rather die fighting than live knowing I could have made a difference." In the command center, Commander Hyun-woo received reports that Section 7 was somehow still holding. The impossible human was not only alive, he was continuing to fight, against overwhelming odds. "Sir," his communications officer said, "the human is requesting medical support for continued operations. He says he is wounded but still combat effective." Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display in amazement. Section 7 was a crucial supply depot. If it fell, the entire platform's defense would collapse. But how could one injured human hold against a dozen Void Reapers? Send him whatever he needs, Hyunwoo ordered. And get me a direct communication line. I want to talk to this human. The line crackled to life, filled with the sounds of weapons fire and explosions. When Taeyeon's voice came through, it was strained with pain but absolutely steady. Section 7 Defensive Position, Lieutenant Taeyeon reporting. This is Commander Hyunwoo, came the reply. I am ordering you to evacuate immediately. Your position is being overrun. Respectfully, sir, my position is secure. I can hold this area. You are wounded and outnumbered. This is suicide. There was a pause, filled with the sound of energy weapons firing. Then Taeyeon's voice returned, calm as ever. Sir, I did not ask to be placed in the rear with supplies. But this is where you put me, so this is where I will fight. Section 7 will not fall while I am alive. The communication cut off as another wave of Void Reapers began their assault. Hyunwoo stared at the tactical display, watching as the impossible human prepared to face odds that would terrify seasoned Krellian veterans. For the first time since meeting the humans, Hyunwoo began to wonder if the galaxy had seriously misjudged these strange, fragile creatures. Any rational being would retreat when faced with certain death. But the human in Section 7 seemed to have a different definition of rational. The real test was about to begin. The orbital defense platform was falling. Section after section went dark as Void Reaper forces pushed deeper into the station. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls as survivors retreated toward the evacuation ships. But in Section 7, Lieutenant Taeyeon was not retreating. Captain Mena worked quickly with her medical supplies, trying to patch the worst of his injuries. She had inserted a small tube into his chest to help his collapsed lung and wrapped his broken ribs as tightly as she could. But there was only so much field medicine could do. Your breathing is getting worse, she said, checking his pulse. And you are losing too much blood. We need to get you to a real medical facility. Taeyeon leaned against the wall, his rifle still ready in his hands. Through the hole in the outer hull, he could see more Void Reaper boarding pods approaching. Each pod carried at least 6 enemy warriors, and there were dozens of them. How long until they reach us? He asked. Maybe 10 minutes, Mina replied. Taeyeon, please. You have done enough. Let someone else take over. Who? Taeyeon asked simply. Everyone else evacuated. It is just us now. The sound of metal cutting through metal echoed through the corridors. The Void Reapers were using their tools to break through the blast doors that separated Section 7 from the rest of the station. Soon they would pour through like a dark flood. In the command center, Commander Hyunwoo watched the tactical display with growing amazement. Every other section of the platform had either fallen or been evacuated. Only Section 7 remained active, its defenses still operational despite being completely surrounded. Sir, reported his sensor operator, the Void Reapers are massing for a final assault on Section 7. They have positioned over 40 warriors for the attack. 40? Hyunwoo could not believe it. Against one wounded human? The enemy seems to consider him a significant threat, the operator replied. They are bringing heavy weapons and assault specialists. General Thorne, the rock-like Thracian commander, shook his massive head. This makes no sense. Why would the Void Reapers waste so many resources on one position? Because that position is the key to the entire platform, Hyunwoo realized suddenly. Section 7 controls the power distribution for the main weapons. If it falls, we lose our defensive cannons. The aliens had placed the human in what they thought was an unimportant supply depot. But the supply depot controlled the platform's most vital systems. Without it, the entire station would be helpless. We have to help him, declared Captain Vorth, a young Krellian officer. If that human can hold the position, we might still have a chance. Help him how? Asked General Thorne. We cannot get troops to his position. The Void Reapers control all the corridors between here and there. Hyunwoo studied the tactical map, looking for options. We can provide covering fire from the remaining gun batteries. And we can give him access to the platform's automated defenses? Automated defenses? Vorth looked confused. In Section 7? Emergency systems, Yanwu explained. Every section has hidden weapon turrets and blast shields for last-ditch defense. We never activated them because we thought they were unnecessary. He opened a communication channel to Section 7. The line crackled with static and the sound of approaching enemies. Lieutenant Tae-yun, this is Commander Hyunwoo. I am activating emergency defensive systems in your section. You will have additional firepower in 60 seconds. Tae-yun's voice came back, strained but steady. Thank you, sir. We will make good use of it. We? Hyunwoo asked. Captain Mina is here with me. She refuses to leave. Hyunwoo looked at his officers in surprise. 2 humans were preparing to face 40 Void Reapers. It was completely insane. It was also the bravest thing he had ever witnessed. The blast doors finally gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Void Reaper warriors poured through the opening like a mechanical army. Their red eyes glowed in the dim light as they spread out to surround the remaining defenders. Tae-yun raised his rifle and opened fire. His shots were precise despite his injuries, targeting the joints and weak points he had learned to find. But there were too many enemies, and his broken ribs made it hard to aim properly. The hidden weapon turrets activated. Just as the Void Reapers began their assault, automated guns dropped from the ceiling and emerged from the walls, filling the air with deadly fire. The enemy warriors staggered under the sudden attack, their formation breaking apart, but the turrets alone could not stop 40 enemies. The Void Reapers adapted quickly, using their superior numbers to overwhelm the defensive systems one by one. Tae-yun found himself backed into a corner, his ammunition running low. Each breath was agony, and dark spots danced at the edges of his vision. But he kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting. A Void Reaper warrior broke through the automated defenses and charged directly at him. Tae-yun tried to dodge, but his broken leg gave out. He fell hard, his rifle skittering away across the floor. The enemy warrior raised its weapon for the killing shot. Time seemed to slow as Tae-yun looked up at his approaching death. He had done his best, but it had not been enough. Then Mina appeared, moving faster than anyone expected. She had found a plasma cutter from the engineering supplies and modified it into a weapon. The superheated beam sliced through the Void Reaper's armor like it was made of paper. I thought you were a medic, Tae-yun gasped as she helped him to his feet. I am, Mina replied, handing him a fresh ammunition clip. But I learned other skills too. The battle continued for another hour. Tae-yun and Mina worked together, using every trick they could think of. When the automated turrets were destroyed, they used the platform's own systems against the invaders. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, they improvised with whatever they could find. Tae-yun's injuries got worse with each passing minute. His breathing became more labored, his movements slower. But he never stopped fighting. When he could not run, he walked. When he could not walk, he crawled. When he could not crawl, he found a position with good cover and kept shooting. In the command center, the alien officers watched in stunned silence as the impossible battle continued. The sensors showed that both humans were severely wounded, but they refused to give up. How are they still fighting? Whispered Captain Vorth. They should be dead by now. I do not understand it, admitted General Thorne. My people are known for our endurance, but this is beyond anything I have ever seen. Commander Hyunwoo studied the tactical display, beginning to realize something important. The humans were not just tough, they were adapting. Every time the Void Reapers changed their tactics, the humans found a new way to counter them. They are learning, he said quietly. In the middle of combat, while wounded and outnumbered, they are still learning and adapting. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last Void Reaper in Section 7 fell. Tae-yun collapsed against a wall, his rifle empty and his body pushed far beyond its limits. Mina knelt beside him, checking his vital signs with shaking hands. We did it, she whispered. We actually held the position. For now, Tae-yun replied, looking at the hole in the outer hull where more enemy pods were approaching. But they will send more. The communication system crackled to life. Commander Hyun-woo's voice came through, filled with something that sounded like awe. Section 7, this is Command. What is your status? Tae-yun tried to sit up straighter, but the pain was too much. Position secure, sir. Ready for the next wave. There was a long pause before Hyun-woo responded. Lieutenant, you have been fighting for 6 hours with injuries that should have killed you. Both of you have. How is this possible? Tae-yun looked at Mina, then at the bodies of the fallen Void Reapers scattered around their position. He thought about how the aliens had dismissed humans as too fragile to fight, how they had been placed in support roles and told to stay out of the way. Sir, he said finally, we do not know how to quit. In the command center, those simple words hit the alien officers like a physical blow. They had superior armor, enhanced strength, and advanced weapons. But they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to be defeated. For the first time, Commander Hyun-woo began to understand that the galaxy had made a terrible mistake about humans. They were not fragile creatures who needed protection. They were something far more dangerous, warriors who would never surrender. No matter how much pain they had to endure, the battle for the platform was far from over. But in Section 7 too, wounded humans had just taught the galaxy a lesson about the true meaning of strength. 18 hours had passed since the first Void Reaper attack. Lieutenant Tae-yun had been fighting continuously, his broken body refusing to give up even when his mind begged for rest. Section 7 looked like a battlefield from a nightmare, filled with the wreckage of destroyed enemies and improvised defenses. Captain Mina had done everything she could with her medical supplies, but Tae-yun was running on willpower alone now. His face was pale from blood loss, and every breath sounded wet and painful. But his eyes were still alert, still watching for the next attack. Tae-yun, Mina said softly, you need to rest. Just for a few minutes, let me take watch. Cannot. Rest, he replied, checking his rifle for the 100th time. They are planning something big. I can feel it. Through the hole in the outer hull, space looked different now. The Void Reaper fleet had repositioned itself, forming a perfect circle around the planet. Their ships pulsed with dark energy, preparing for something terrible. In the command center, the situation reports were grim. Half the orbital platforms had fallen. The planetary surface was under constant bombardment. Most of the alien forces were ready to retreat. Convinced that the battle was lost, Commander Hyun-woo stood before the main tactical display, watching red warning lights blink across the screen. His officers waited for orders, but what orders could he give? They were outnumbered, outgunned, and rapidly running out of options. Sir, reported his communications officer, Section 7 is requesting additional ammunition and medical supplies. Section 7? Hyun-woo looked at the display in amazement. They are still operational? Yes, sir. The human reports that he has eliminated 63 enemy warriors and is prepared to continue defensive operations. General Thorne leaned forward, his rocky features showing disbelief. 63? That is impossible. No single warrior could achieve such numbers. The sensors confirm it, the communications officer replied. Section 7 has the highest enemy kill count of any position on the platform. Captain Vorth stood up suddenly. If a wounded human can achieve such results, what does that say about the rest of us? We have been thinking about retreat while he continues to fight. He has advantages we do not, protested another officer. The section's defensive systems, automated weapons, which he activated and coordinated while bleeding from multiple wounds, Vorth interrupted. The defensive systems mean nothing without someone skilled enough to use them. Commander Hyun-woo studied the tactical display more carefully. Section 7 was not just holding its position, it was disrupting the entire Void Reaper attack plan. The enemy kept sending more warriors to eliminate the stubborn defenders, warriors that could have been used to attack other positions. He is changing the battle, Hyun-woo said quietly. One human is forcing the enemy to adapt their entire strategy. On the planetary surface, word was spreading about the impossible human who refused to surrender. Alien soldiers who had been ready to retreat began to reconsider. If a single wounded human could hold against such odds, Maybe they could fight a little longer too. Sergeant Su Yang, monitoring communications from the planet, reported similar stories from other human positions. Commander Ji-hoon was leading a defense of the main spaceport, his small force holding against vastly superior numbers. Engineer Jinwoo had turned the supply depot into a fortress that had survived 12 separate attacks. It is not just Lieutenant Tae-yun, Su-yang told her alien counterparts. Humans across the planet are refusing to retreat. They are fighting in positions that should have fallen hours ago. The aliens began to understand something remarkable. They had been fighting to avoid defeat, trying to minimize losses and preserve their forces. But the humans were fighting to win, regardless of the cost to themselves. In Section 7, Tae-yun was adapting his tactics to his increasingly limited mobility. He could no longer run from position to position, so he had created a series of interconnected defensive points. He could barely walk, so he had memorized every distance and angle in his section. His lung was failing, so he had learned to fight, while using less oxygen. "You are changing your fighting style," Mina observed during a brief lull in the action. "You fight differently now than you did this morning?" "Have to," Tae-yun replied simply. "Body is breaking down, so mind has to work harder." It was true. With each new limitation imposed by his injuries, Tae-yun had found new ways to be effective. He used the environment more creatively, set more elaborate traps, and planned his attacks with mathematical precision. The Void Reapers had noticed the change too. Their latest assault waves were more cautious, more respectful of the wounded. Humans' capabilities. They had learned that underestimating him was a fatal mistake. Commander Hyunwoo opened a direct communication line to Section 7. He needed to understand what was happening, how one human could accomplish so much. "Lieutenant Tae-yun, this is Commander Hyunwoo. I need to ask you something." "Yes, sir," came the strained reply. "You have been fighting for 18 hours with injuries that should have incapacitated you. You have eliminated more enemies than entire squads of our best warriors. How is this possible?" There was a long pause. In the background, Hyunwoo could hear the sounds of weapon maintenance and quiet conversation between the two humans. "Sir," Tae-yun finally replied, "you keep asking how this is possible. But you are asking the wrong question." "What should I be asking?" "Ask why it is necessary," Hyunwoo frowned. "I do not understand." "You placed me here because you thought this position was unimportant. You gave me a job you thought was safe. But there is no such thing as an unimportant position when people are depending on you." The words hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. The aliens had been thinking about military efficiency, resource allocation, and casualty reduction. But the humans were thinking about duty and responsibility. "Every position matters," Tae-yun continued. "Every person we protect matters. Every minute we hold gives others a chance to live. That is why it is possible." In the command center, the alien officers looked at each other with new understanding. They had been fighting a tactical battle, trying to achieve military objectives. But the humans were fighting a moral battle, trying to protect innocent lives. The communication alert sounded again. Reports were coming in from across the battle zone. Human positions that had been written off as lost were somehow still active. Human soldiers who should have retreated were launching counterattacks. Human commanders who had been relegated to support roles were coordinating successful defenses. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "the Void Reapers are requesting additional forces from their reserves. They seem to be having difficulty maintaining their attack schedule." General Thorne looked at the tactical display with new eyes. "They are having difficulty because the humans are not behaving like rational military units. They are not retreating when they should, not surrendering when defeat is certain. They are not following the rules of war," Captain Vorth added. "They are making up their own rules?" Commander Hyunwoo realized that the battle was reaching a turning point. The Void Reapers had planned their attack based on predictable enemy behavior, but humans were not predictable. They fought harder when wounded, more cleverly when desperate, and more fiercely when protecting others. "All units," he announced. Over the communication system, new orders. We are not retreating. We are not minimizing casualties. We are fighting to win, whatever the cost. The alien forces responded with renewed determination. Inspired by human examples, they began to take risks they had never considered before. Krellian warriors charged positions they had been avoiding. Thracian defenders held ground they had been ready to abandon. In Section 7, Taeyun sensed the change in the battle's rhythm. The communication channels carried new energy, new purpose. The aliens were no longer fighting like they expected to lose. They are learning, he told Mena with satisfaction. Finally, they are learning. The next wave of Void Reaper attacks met fierce resistance across all positions. For the first time since the battle began, the enemy advance stalled. The wounded human in Section 7 had done more than hold his position. He had changed the entire character of the war, but the hardest fighting was still to come. 22 hours after the first attack, the impossible happened. The Void Reaper fleet began to withdraw from Kepler 442b, their perfect formations breaking apart as they retreated into deep space. For the first time in galactic history, the mechanical invaders had been forced to abandon an assault. In Section 7, Lieutenant Taeyun finally allowed himself to collapse. His rifle fell from nerveless fingers as Captain Mena rushed to his side. He had held his position through the entire battle, never retreating, never surrendering, never giving up. "It is over," Mena whispered, checking his pulse with shaking hands. "Taeyun, we won. The Void Reapers are retreating." Taeyun tried to speak but could only manage a weak smile. His body had been pushed far beyond any reasonable limit. Multiple broken bones, severe internal bleeding, collapsed lung, and dozens of smaller injuries had accumulated over the long battle. By all medical logic, he should have died hours ago. But human logic was different from medical logic. In the command center, Commander Hyunwoo stared at the tactical display in amazement. The retreat was real. The sensors showed Void Reaper ships jumping to hyperspace, abandoning their invasion fleet and fleeing the system. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the Void Reaper command." "Ship, put it through," Hyunwoo ordered. The alien voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, but there was something else in it, something that might have been confusion. "Confederate forces," the voice said, "explain the behavior of your human units. They do not follow standard military protocols. They continue fighting when defeat is certain. They adapt when adaptation should be impossible. This does not match our combat predictions." Commander Hyunwoo looked around at his officers, then spoke carefully. "The humans fight according to their nature. They do not surrender when lives depend on them." "This is inefficient," the Void Reaper voice replied. "Continued resistance after tactical defeat serves no logical purpose." "Perhaps that is why you are retreating," Hyunwoo said quietly. The transmission ended abruptly. The Void Reaper fleet continued its withdrawal, leaving behind a battlefield they had expected to control within hours. Emergency medical teams finally reached Section 7, bringing advanced equipment and skilled alien doctors. They found Taeyun unconscious but alive, his body somehow still functioning despite injuries that had killed stronger beings. Dr. Kellner, the Ultrian medical specialist who had originally classified humans as fragile, examined Taeyun with growing amazement. The scans showed damage that should have been fatal multiple times over. "This is impossible," he muttered, studying the readings. 3 broken ribs, 1 piercing the lung. Severe internal bleeding. Fractured leg bone, concussion, blood loss. Equivalent to 30% of total volume. "How is he still alive?" Captain Mena looked up from where she sat beside Taeyun's medical bed. "Because he decided to be." "That is not medical science," Dr. Kellner protested. "No," Mena agreed. "It is human science." The medical examination continued for hours. The alien doctors discovered that Taeyun's body had somehow adapted to function with his injuries. His remaining lung had increased its efficiency. His circulatory system had rerouted around damaged areas. His brain had learned to operate with reduced oxygen. He changed his own biology through willpower. Dr. Kellner reported to Commander Hyunwoo. I have never seen anything like it. Humans can apparently force their bodies to function beyond normal limitations through mental determination alone. Word of the victory spread quickly through the Galactic Confederation. The story grew with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. A single wounded human had held a critical position for 22 hours, eliminating over 80 enemy warriors and forcing the Void Reapers to completely revise their attack strategy. More importantly, that human's example had inspired the entire defensive force to fight with unprecedented determination. Other human positions had shown similar resilience, and the alien forces had learned to match their intensity. 3 days later, Taeyun woke up in the medical bay. His body was wrapped in healing devices, but his eyes were clear and alert. Mena sat beside his bed, reading reports on a tablet. How long was I unconscious? He asked weakly. 72 hours, Mena replied. The doctors say you will make a full recovery, though it will take several months. The battle? We won. The Void Reapers retreated completely. Intelligence reports say they are avoiding this entire sector now. Taeyun nodded slowly. Good. What about the others? Ji-hoon, Su-young, Jinwoo, all alive. All heroes, according to the official reports. Ji-hoon held the spaceport with 15 soldiers against 300 enemies. Su-young coordinated communications for the entire planet while under constant attack. Jinwoo turned an ammunition depot into a fortress that never fell. They learned, Taeyun said with satisfaction. The aliens finally learned what humans can do. The door to the medical bay opened and Commander Hyunwoo entered. His massive frame seemed somehow smaller than before, less arrogant. He approached Taeyun's bed with obvious respect. Lieutenant, he said formally, I owe you an apology. I owe all humans an apology. For what? Taeyun asked. For not understanding what strength really means. We measured your worth by your armor and weapons, not by your spirit and determination. It was a mistake that almost cost us the war. Hyunwoo paused, then continued more quietly. I have been a soldier for 30 years. I have fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy. But I have never seen anything like what you accomplished in Section 7. I just did my job, Taeyun replied simply. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. You did something far more important. You showed us what it means to never give up. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Confederation Council convened an emergency session. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from every member species, all gathered to discuss the unprecedented victory over the Void Reapers. Commander Ji-hoon stood at the center of the chamber, wearing his dress uniform with quiet dignity. Around him, alien leaders who had once dismissed humans as too fragile to fight now listened with respectful attention. The Confederation owes humanity a debt, announced Supreme Counselor Vex, his 4 eyes focused intently on Ji-hoon. Your species has proven that strength comes in many forms. We were wrong to judge you by physical appearance alone. What we discovered, Ji-hoon replied, is that humans and aliens can learn from each other. Your people taught us about advanced technology and galactic warfare. We showed you about determination and refusing to surrender. General Thorne stood up, his rocky form towering over the other delegates. I propose that humans be reclassified from support species to elite combat species. Their tactical abilities and psychological resilience make them valuable beyond measure. The vote was unanimous. Humans were not only accepted as equal members of the Confederation, they were sought after as the most effective soldiers in the galaxy, but perhaps the most important change happened in medical textbooks across the galaxy. Dr. Kellner's report on human physiology included a new section on the relationship between mental state and physical capability. It concluded with a simple observation that revolutionized galactic medicine. Humans have taught us that the mind can force the body to achieve impossible things. What we called fragility was actually adaptability. What we called weakness was actually the foundation of incredible strength. 6 months later, Lieutenant Taeyun returned to active duty. His injuries had healed completely, but more importantly, he had become a symbol of human resilience throughout the galaxy. Military academies studied his tactics. Medical schools analyzed his survival. Young soldiers of every species learned about the human who refused to quit. He was assigned to lead the new Human-Alien Special Forces unit, combining human determination with alien technology. His first mission briefing included a note that would have been impossible before the Battle of Kepler 442b. Objective: impossible mission with guaranteed heavy casualties. Recommended for human-led team due to their unique ability to succeed when failure is certain. Tae-yun smiled as he read those words. The galaxy had finally learned the most important lesson about humanity. They were not fragile creatures who needed protection. They were the beings you called when something absolutely, positively had to be accomplished, no matter what the cost, and they would never, ever give up. In the end, that had made all the difference.